Good morning, everybody. Haunted homies. Oh, that's not the screen I want to be on. I really need to turn this volume down for this, for YouTube here. That's a little bit more manageable. I could not hear anything. Make it a little bit louder. How's everybody doing today? Morning. Morning, someone. Go a little bit louder. I needed to get picked up by... I haven't had to do background audio from... That seems good. How's the audio balance? Pretty good? That's what I'm talking about. What's going on, haunted homies? Turn in. Today, after all this time, we're gonna be doing the DK64 randomizer tier list. Here's what we got on the docket today. We got levels. We got Kongs. We got moves. We've got an adjusted bosses tier list. I couldn't find one that was just DK64 bosses in isolation. So we got a bunch of banjo bosses on there too. Not ranking those. We're just gonna start with the worlds, the levels, Kongs, moves, bosses, and then enemies. I don't think the enemies one is like incredibly comprehensive, but good one to have. That in the middle there, so everybody can see. But yeah, I'm excited for this one. Feel free to raise your voice in the chat. Let me know what you think as we go through. I'm gonna give people a little bit of time to pile in. How is the vulture an enemy? Because you shoot it with your coconut. Kind of like how the mechfish is kind of a mini boss if you think about it. So the vulture is like, it's just an enemy you can't reach, so you have to hit it with a gun. Also, when I went on an image site and searched for DK64 enemies and copied all the pictures over, it was in the list. Oh yeah, the one in the tiny temple. For sure. Yeah, it sounds like you've been busy. We'll get started pretty soon with the with our levels. Yeah, thanks so much for everybody for hopping in, for making 50 followers possible, which this was the goal for. It's been cool to be affiliate. We've gotten emotes and channel points and all kinds of fun stuff. So very excited, and thank you all very much. You got a glass of red wine and a veggie pizza in the... I just had a veggie pizza. At my Costco equivalent here, BJ's, I get the cauliflower pizza with veggies on top, and it's a little pricey, but it hits the spot and doesn't make me feel like a piece of crap. I have an unspecified beverage in that mug that I won't reveal because I want to cut this and put it on YouTube. Oh, you know what? I put chat somewhere in this window. That'd be pretty sick if I could. What is it? Browser capture? Let me try the chat box, see if it works. Have to crank it up. That doesn't look like it's working. I'm still learning a couple of the tricks here since I started using OBS. You have to like integrate with a bunch of things. I'm ready to get started. Feel free to speak up. I want to hear your opinions as we go through, but we're gonna rank it all. All right, so let's start with the the levels tier list. So, think about how I'm judging our levels. So, this is all from perspective of the randomizer. So, not like the core game, but elements like design, music, that kind of stuff I will consider. But I'm giving an extra weight to like how does it affect the randomizer. And I'll tell you what, I'll actually put Japes first as a good example of that. So, want to tweak down your music a teensy bit? Oh, absolutely. How is that? I appreciate you giving the feedback on that. Audio good? It is now gone. Happy medium? Perfect. That's what I'm talking about. I haven't found a good way to test audio on OBS. And that's definitely something I'm gonna need to figure it out. I'm gonna start here with Japes actually, so I can kind of explain what I mean. So I'm putting Japes in a solid A tier. What are the important factors here? Well, one, how excited am I to see it early? Because if I see a level early in single level order, whatever it is, I'm probably going to spend more time there, and I'm happier to see it. So I would want to see levels I like more earlier in a randomizer. I think Japes hits a very nice note there, particularly because so much of it is open and in a nice tight loop. When you go into Japes, you go through the beginning area, you go through the peanut tunnel, and the hillside is just wide open for you. You get to go through the top, you get the arena for free. You get to peek a lot of stuff. And it's stuff that's hidden behind coconut, which is, it's a specific check. You've got the funky shop right there, so you get access to a couple checks there. And then you get the free Diddy item and the cage item, which are 2 for 1 and for free. A place with a lot of density is something I'm definitely a fan of. And Japes has density in a couple places. The Chunky Underground, which is like a pretty common Chunky theme. The Hillside. Those are the 2 biggest places, but they're pretty significant. As well as the, honestly, the Peanut Tunnel's pretty good. And so is the Hive Tunnel. A lot of nice dense checks means I can burn through Jungle Japes relatively fast. And it's not super locked behind stuff. You need Feather for the Hive area, and you need Coconut for a lot of the hillside checks. But there's like... And you need a lot of peanuts for Japes. That's really interesting. But overall, there's a lot you can do here very quickly without needing a lot of stuff. But I think there's a few weaknesses. One, you kind of have to go out of your way for a lot of the bananas in the trees. Tiny's banana is a little bit annoying because those bananas are all on the logs. 2, the boss doors are in kind of awkward places. If you don't have vines, they're kind of hard to get to, and that's not great. 3, you need peanuts for like everything. It's kind of weird. I feel like I had one more gripe about it. It could be more complex and more interesting. I will say the theme for it's a total banger. It goes into like a couple different phases, which are all fun and pretty interesting. You get a little bit of brass in there, some drums. It's a good time. I think it's a solid A tier. I'm happy to see Japes early on. It's very nice. I'm gonna go Aztec next. We're going B tier for Aztec. Aztec's good. I think the theming's great. Like, when I listen to the theme for Angry Aztec, I'm taken straight to Aztec. The problem with judging it by music a little bit is that we've all got, like, custom music. Thank you very much. There's custom music in, like, all of the levels, so it doesn't matter too much. Yeah, so Aztec has, I'd say, immaculate vibes. Because if it were a vibe check, I'd give Aztec like an S or an A, because it does exactly what it sets out to do. You've got the very like deserty sounding music. I don't even know how to describe how it is. Even like the background's sandy. And then you've got all these exciting ruins. Like when you play this, and this is not Randomizer, but when you play this as a kid and you go into Aztec for the first time, you're like walking into these temples and they feel so big and you're like, oh man, there's so much to explore here. Like I feel like I'm really like some kind of cool explorer. And I think with all those temples, and again, not Randomizer, but I'd say the vibes are immaculate. As far as a Randomizer level, Aztec is definitely hit or miss. The fact that you get blocked off by guitar to do more than half the levels is definitely a pain. Furthermore, you're gonna need a lot of stuff to do anything in the tiny temple either. It's one of those levels that is really pulled down by the fact that you can't do much until you have certain things. Meaning I'm not gonna want to see it unless I've got the right stuff. Once you do have guitar, a lot opens up and I become a big fan of Aztec. You run through the middle, there's a dirt patch. You keep going through the tunnel, freak a splat. Frankie's right there and a lot of balloons. You get into the Aztec Oasis and Totem area. You've got another shop, and then you've got some really good... You've got some good dense checks in Aztec. Chunky 5-door temple is 3 checks in 1, which is big time. Again, another dense chunky check, which is big time. The Llama Temple, there's a little bit of density in there too. I think Llama Temple is a lot of fun with all the different things you have to do to get the bananas or the checks in there. It's one of the few places they want you to use a ring stand. The llama spitting. All of those are locked by just like 1 or 2 things, so it is kind of nice and puzzly. However, I'm just so pulled down by the fact that you need guitar to get through. So I'd give it a solid B tier. I'm not like upset to see it, but it's not my favorite. We're gonna go Creepy Castle next. I'm giving Creepy Castle an A tier. With Castle, there is a lot you can do. I'd say, and they definitely set out to do what they want with the vibes. It is creepy. There's thunderstorms. There's rain. I don't know if you see that all in the Randomizer. Music's creepy, and all the different rooms have like different variations, which is a lot of fun. As far as the Randomizer goes, you've got a nice clear route through the underground, which can get you a ton of bananas, a couple checks in a pretty dense way, as well as a few shops, and that's nice. Wow, I didn't expect the ending there to that song. Is it on a loop? Oh no, it's another Pokemon Stadium 2 song. I got a playlist of a bunch of DK64 music because I figured... Also, shout out to the people who make the DK64 music. They do a really good job, all the creators of the music, and I know it's not copyrighted, so I figured I could use this on the stream and put it on YouTube. So Castle, you've got the nice quick route through the underground. There is some stuff down there that's pretty heavily locked, which is tough. You start getting in the crypt, where you need both a gun and a move for most of the Kongs. I think every single one of the Kongs, except Tiny, doesn't need Feather. I guess logically, she does, because you're not supposed to be able to tag anywhere in there, in logic. The dungeon, you can usually do the DK check, but like Diddy Dungeon and Lanky Dungeon, you still need multiple things, so I take some points off there, but it's all in very close proximity, which is nice. Once you get to the outside, you gotta dock it a few points for climbing the whole way up. Even though a lot's accessible, you're gonna have a big time sink climbing Castle. However, you got some checks there that tend to be really good. If I understand the statistics correctly, the dirt on top of Castle is like extremely likely in comparison to a lot of other things to have a check. You've got Kasplats on that climb to make it worth it. If you've got Tiny, you've got yourself a banana medal. Lanky Hedge Maze is pretty dense. You've got a shop, and I think it serves as a pretty good... I like the challenge of a little bit of platforming difficulty. that's one of the things that's going to separate a good player from a bad player, is just not falling off of castle as much. And I like that in a randomizer where there are these elements that can shake things up. You can have a player who beats a player that's better than them because they did pick the right path. But it's not all the time, and it's these elements like creepy castle, the difficult platforming sections, and factory that are partially what make that difference. So it's good to have those in place. I think the rooms in castle, a little bit of a pain, but they have, I think they're very good theming. They're fun and different. A museum, a ballroom, a library, like they're very bold and committed, and that's what castle is. It's very committed to itself, which you have to appreciate. All right, next we've got Crystal Caves. Crystal Caves is a toughie. I'm generally not a big fan, but there is a lot I like about it. I'm gonna go C tier for Caves. So, Caves isn't so big. It feels big, but it's not actually that big. However, it's a pain to get anywhere. Because of the river in the middle, you're constantly traversing both vertically and horizontally in ways that really slow you down. In some ways, I think that's a good mechanic because it forces you to really master your movement. If you start jumping with Diddy, tagging in the air to cancel your momentum and falling, that's a mark of a good player, and your movement throughout caves and your routing is going to... I'm making this B tier. And your routing throughout caves is really going to be a factor in how well you run your race. I'd say that's actually a strength of caves now. I'm convincing myself right now. The problem is, everything's so dang far away. You don't have that density, like, at all. And even where there is density, you need so much different stuff. It's not like in Japes, where once I have coconut, I can open up the whole hillside and do that. No. I need, like, every instrument under the sun to do a single thing. And then, think about the checks you actually have available in the main caves area. You've got a couple Kasplats, which again are extremely far apart. You've got a blast course, the slam ice puzzle, which is unique but weird. What is Caves going for in a theme, by the way? It doesn't really have the vibes. It's like, I guess it does more in the regular one, where there's like the kocha and like the boulders falling from the ceiling, and like the music's all like tinny and cavey. But I don't know, it feels like Caves doesn't dive into the idea of a cave as much as Castle dives into the idea of a castle. What other checks? You've got the beetle race in there. Nobody likes doing the beetle race. Some mini checks, which you have to, again, go far for. It feels like if I want to do anything in Caves, I've got a whole project on my hands. Which is definitely not something I appreciate. I'm gonna give it a B tier. I don't think I have too much to say there. Frantic Factory. We're going right up to S tier. Frantic Factory is the best this game has to offer. Now, the vibes are immaculate. Elite. It does exactly what it sets out to be. Here's the thing. How many places in this game actually seem to have anything to do with the plot? Gloomy Galleon? The lighthouse place? The jungle that the monkeys just hang out in? I don't think so. But in Factory, he rules up to something. He's making toys for some reason. There's hints of what's actually going on. There's some kind of story to be held. And it provides, again, this is not randomizer specific, but the track for Frantic Factory, it sounds toy-y, it starts with the wind-up toy, and then the really sharp, like, kind of, what is it, a bell, a vibraphone, something like that. It actually makes, I think, one of the best, like, creepy or Halloween songs either. And, like, Frantic Factory does a really good job of that. I'm pleased with Factory, just on an aesthetic level. Not to shut you down, Holly Jolly 21. But that is how I feel about it. Now, in terms of the randomizer, I think Factory shines even more. Production room. We've talked about the idea that a difficult platforming section to kind of separate the good from the younger players is important because it provides some level of control over your time. Production is the hardest platforming area in the entire game, in level 3, which is kind of surprising. I think that's great, because there's only a couple checks up there. You can choose to skip it, but you may be rewarded for going up as well. There's banana medals. The whole thing is a gamble. Are you going to make it up the first time? That's just production. Overall, you've got a lot of coins in here too, which is very big. Doesn't matter which Kong you have. If I see Factory number 1 or 2, I'm going for it immediately. Probably. I know I'm gonna be able to get my coins for the rest of the randomizer so that I can buy things from all the shops. And Factory is just dumping them onto your lap. They're in the hallways. Anytime there's a pole and you're changing which floor you're on, there's like a pile of coins. I love to see it. In addition, it's a nice linear path. You don't have to do too much decision making other than, like, do I climb production? That's nice in a randomizer because I think it gives you time to think about your, like, the path you're going on. It gives you a little bit of time to think about your hints, think about your overall plan for the seed, because you're a little bit on autopilot. If I go to forest or something and I've got to figure out which side I want to start on, which order I want to hit the banana port pads in the main area, I don't have time to do that. But in Factory, I do. So it's nice to see. In addition, so much of the stuff in Factory is not locked behind anything, which means I can make a pretty dense trip with whoever I've got, or is skippable, depending what move you have. Forgetting R&D, because R&D is pretty locked by instruments. You can do a lot of tiny kick sliding stuff for like a rang stand. You can always skip Diddy block tower for the most part. You don't really need spring. Makes me a very big fan of Factory. Another nice bonus is the fact that this is the home of Mad Jack, the blessed boss Mad Jack. So you got to give it a point for that, even though in the randomizer you're not always going to have that as like the boss for Factory. So that's why, and spoilers, that's our only S tier, I'd say. Moving on to Forest. Forest is D tier trash. I'm gonna tell you right now. Everything in the mills. Oh my god. We are not on the same page today. So, the Forest has like. Forest feels just like a forest to me. I get there's like, oh, there's big mushrooms, and it's Fungi Forest. Ta-da! I don't know, that's great. It feels like I'm in a Banjo-Kazooie level. More than anywhere else in this game, Fungi Forest is like, alright, I get it. This is a rare game, and I'm playing Banjo now. There's a giant cuckoo clock tower, and I'm playing Banjo. Which is not a bad thing, like, Banjo's good, it was the era. But it doesn't feel very DK to me. The day-night cycle is not fun. I don't think it's fun. It feels like backtracking that we've once again engineered ourselves out of with Dusk mode. And thank God for that, because is it that hard to get one gun or oranges to hit the switch to go to the day-night cycle? Not really. So it's not like it's a challenge or like some innovative thing. It provides a little bit of routing complexity, because you have to think like, okay, if I'm going to the mills, I can do the stuff inside during the daytime for the most part. But I can do the stuff outside for the most part at nighttime. Like, depending on what moves I have, what's the most efficient way to go about that? I don't think that's fun. Especially with how spread out everything is. Once you get the banana port pads, it's not too bad, but you still gotta go through a tunnel for everything. In addition, you've got the super locked down bean area. And look, the bean is fantastic, but the bean exists. Sorry, Bert. It's not enough to pull it higher. I love the bean. It's a great meme. But to get there, you're gonna need feather, pineapple, the bean, saxophone, mini monkey. Yeah, all of those things. That's super locked down. And it's like, I don't like having I think the worst offense of Forest is having a shop locked behind 2 guns. 2 very specific guns. Shops feel like very low-level checks that should be accessible to me. Are we playing this song again? No, this is a different Pokemon Stadium 2 song. Shops should be accessible, like at a very early level, I think. Like Sphere 0, you shouldn't really need anything. And the fact that it's locked behind 2 specific guns really irks me. In addition, you go to the other side, and you've got the mushroom. And now you've got another decision on your hands. And one of the big points here is, you've got to, when you're in Forest, your brain has to be activated the whole time. It's not like Factory, where you've got some time to really think about your route on like a long-term sense. You're so committed to your short-term decisions that you can be really thrown off your game, because you got to be like, do I climb the mushroom? Do I go to the mills first? Do I make it daytime? Do I make it nighttime? That's a lot. In addition, some of the checks here are a little bit of a pain. Chunky minecart, if it's your first time doing it, trying to figure out like the bell mechanics is annoying. It takes a while. Trying to think about some of the other checks. I will give some props to the saving the apple one and the bean. All of the checks in the bean area I think are a lot of fun, and it's a unique usage of Hunky Chunky that you don't see throughout the rest of the game for the most part, which is nice for a very cool ability that really doesn't get to shine. That's why I've got Forest at D. It's got a couple of highlights, but for the most part it's a pain in the butt. Next we're gonna go Galleon, and I'm gonna put Galleon at C tier. Galleon's got the same problem that Aztec does. Less so, but it feels... But there's so much available that it almost seems worth it. Like Aztec, you can be pretty confident. If you don't have guitar, it's like, I probably don't want to go in. Unless like I know I can clear out the tiny temple. Galleon, you've got all of your shops available, even without diving. So now you've got an interesting decision on your hands. Do I want to go into this place and waste my time jumping and hooplawing to get to the shops because I don't have diving yet? Probably not, but maybe. There might be something there. Let me go check my hints. Oh wait, it's been 30 seconds already? Dagnabbit. The vibes in Galleon. It's certainly gloomy, but gloomy is not like an interesting vibe, I don't think. I don't think a lot of people are going for gloomy vibes. It's definitely watery. There's some nauticalness to it, but it's more like nautical nonsense. No, I'm kidding. There are some really good checks here that I like density-wise. The 2-door ship, you can check... The 2-door and the 5-door ship, you can check what is in the other areas of the ship, depending on what windows you look at, and that's a lot of fun. A little bit of continuity. There's an ad, so I'm going to take a break here for a second. For those on the line and not getting an ad, or maybe the ad didn't go yet. I just got a notification that there was an ad. Thank you for your patience. I don't want to keep going too far before everybody's on board. Unless everybody's not getting an ad? I don't know. I feel like Twitch and OBS don't give you, I guess just Twitch, doesn't give you a really good idea of like what's going on with ads. Maybe it's for like certain people that haven't been there for too long or what. I don't know. I'll keep going because I don't know how many people here are subscribers and I don't know if that ad hit. Anything else I want to say about Galleon? Treasure room, I think is great. There are 5 things in the treasure chest and everything is... I think it's very exciting to go in there. It is one of the best places in the game to just hop in and see like, oh my god, what is in these clams? Someday, I'm gonna go into the treasure chest and I'm gonna find 5 potions, or I'm gonna find 3 Kongs and 2 potions, and I can't imagine how excited I'm gonna be about that. I haven't done it yet. I found 3 potions the other day. But the treasure room is an absolute masterpiece. Shout out to the devs for doing what they did with the pearls and the mermaid and the treasure room so that the pearls are spread out and there could be all this fun stuff in the treasure room. In addition, the fact that you can skip both of the gold towers in the treasure room, and like that's good theming inside of a treasure chest. That does make Galleon a little bit more piratey and stuff like that. Actually, now that I think about it, I think Galleon is a little bit more committed to the vibes than I thought. You've got the seal, you've got the lighthouse area, you've got the... Man, the mech fish really stands out. What is the mech fish and what are they doing there? What is their agenda? I don't know. I will say, now that I think about it, Galleon is a little bit more committed to the nautical and pirate theme than I thought, with the treasure room, with the sunken ship. They actually do a pretty good job. But I gotta hold it back. I gotta hold it back because when I see it, I'm like, you willikers, I hope I have diving. So that's that. Hideout Helm. This is a weird one to put on here because it's like a partial level. I'm gonna give it a C and just a quick over. I've heard in the regular game, you've got to use all of the Kong's moves to progress and go like the whole way through. In theory, I think that sounds like a lot of fun and a very satisfying way to kind of end out the game. You can see the mini tunnel, you can use rocket barrel, all that kind of stuff. In terms of the randomizer, I think it's a fun challenge for your minigame skills, because that is a factor of the game. There is your platforming ability, there's your decision making, your logic solving ability. But your minigame completing ability, that's pretty big too. And giving players different ways to shine and be good is, I think, important. To be able to win at those levels that are like those early levels of play by like really pushing into your strength. Maybe you can just, you're a very technical player, you can just nail the instrument skips to skip your hideout helm room. You can nail the mini games every single time, and your movement's really crisp, and that's what gives you the edge over the people that can make decisions a little bit faster. I think that's really cool. And that also gives people the opportunity at the very top level to be masters of everything. And you can solve your hints fast, you can play your minigames fast. And Hideout Helm does its minigames better than anybody else. So I'm gonna give it a C tier. And that's the first of our tier lists. That's the levels tier list. Feel free to let me know in chat what you think about that. In addition, if you're interested, we've got our link to our Discord up top. You can, if you want to hop in there, we post pictures of pets. We post mundane life updates that you just need somebody to share it with, as well as like stream announcements and stuff like that. But for now, I think I'm ready to move on to the Kong tier list. That's right, it's what everybody's been waiting for. And I grabbed some of the most cursed images I could find off of the internet for this one. I actually don't know if I want to go in this order. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go in this order. Alright. Number 1, Chunky Kong. Chunky is rocketing straight up to S tier. I know, it's a surprise. But I've thought about this for a while, and I think this is the best take I have. Chunky is... Every Kong has 5 moves, right? You've got your gun, your instrument. You've got a pad move. You've got a physical move. Something that somebody does, just like as some kind of action. And you've got your barrel move. Chunky has 6 moves. Chunky uses barrel throwing to pick up boulders, and that is an entire move. That is extra checks. Chunky has more checks, or more moves than everybody else. I'll say that right here. I think that makes him better, but I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. 2. Chunky's every Kong, when they get hit, have like a different distance they get hit. If you go into the arena with Lanky and you get hit, you're gonna fly across the stage. If you're in caves in the cabins area and you get hit, you're gonna fly the whole way to the igloo. If you're Chunky, you're gonna stay right there. And that's big time, because health, living is usually not an issue. The cost of getting hit by an enemy is falling off of something, particularly in terms of like a splat. A lot of those tricky ones that are on the platforms, you need somebody with a little bit of girth to stay there and not fly off. Chunky's a very safe character to play as. Chunky's dash, like the dash jump, is faster than Lanky's and Tiny's. He's the 3rd fastest Kong despite being big. His jump has a relatively good horizontal distance, and he hangs out in the air for a while. But here's the biggest thing. Out of everything, how often are you upset when you find a Chunky move in the randomizer? Every single one of Chunky's moves is useful. Hunky Chunky. You can't do the Hunky Chunky checks other than that one caves check without Hunky Chunky, and that's his worst move. Hunky Chunky, also canonically, he's the first... That's the thing about Chunky, he's dead. Excuse me. When you have a Chunky K rule, you need Punch, you need Hunky Chunky, and you need Gorilla Gone. That's 3 of his moves. When you have Chunky Helm, you need Triangle. When you have... and you always need Chunky for Gorilla Gone to get into Helm. In addition, Pineapple has the best utility out of any gun in the game. It has the biggest hitbox, and it's got the strongest strength value. Pineapple does 3, Coconut and Peanut do 2, and Feather and Grape do 1. So, to elaborate here, there is no Chunky move that you don't want, so you're always excited to get a Chunky move. You're always excited to find Chunky in a check, because Chunky's always required and has good moves and good utility with weight, strength, and Pineapple. And Chunky's required for every single seed in regular settings, not NSAK, because you can use like charge and stuff like that. In addition, Chunky's got personality. I don't know who's ever... Us randomizers might be afraid of that tag barrel. But if you hop into that tag barrel and see the coward... I'm not going to say coward. See how afraid Chunky is to go on this adventure? And you see the courage it takes for him to overcome that, which he does. He wants you to go and pick Tiny instead. He wants to run. But when he's called on, he comes out of the barrel and he makes it happen. Chunky might be the most afraid... He might be the most scared Kong, but he's also the bravest. And that's why I'm giving him S tier. Next we got Diddy Kong. I'd say Diddy Kong's a fan favorite, but I can only give him A tier. Diddy's got hops. That's really nice. Dang, here's another thing. With Diddy and Chunky combined, you can jump and switch to Chunky in the air to get more like grab range, and you can make some jumps that you just would not be able to otherwise. Totally invalidating Simeon Spring. The biggest problem with Diddy is that he's got a couple moves that just blow. Simian Spring might be the single worst Kong-specific ability in the game. You can skip it almost 100% of the time. I'm not sure if it's 100, but it's pretty darn close. Now, Rocket Barrel. Now, I'd say Diddy's mostly good. That's why he's an A tier. Rocket Barrel, there's a lot of stuff you can only do with Rocket Barrel. And Rocket Barrel also provides a lot of utility in its speed. When I'm getting around caves, I'm either using the banana port pads, or I'm using Rocket Barrel to go as fast as I can from side to side, getting a lot of splats and other things along the way without even having to land. Peanuts opens up like half of Japes. There's the mountainside, like the mountain tunnel thing. There's the painting room, and then there's the initial tunnel with the grape and the feather cage inside of it. I'd say Peanut's pretty useful, and one of the other factors that's very important to me in DK64 randomizers with guns is how do you do in the mini game where you've got the Kong in the center and you're being attacked by Kremlins on all sides. I'd probably rather have Peanuts than any other gun for that, because of how rapid it is and the fact that if my aim isn't on point, the alternating guns on both sides of the enemy is going to give me a greater breadth of reach with the Peanuts, ensuring that I'm a little bit more safe. And that's one area where Chunky's Pineapple doesn't quite make the cut, is it stands over his shoulder, so it goes at an odd angle that's kind of hard to align with a top-down view. But the Peanuts, it's both sides, so you're covered a little bit with your mistakes. In addition, it's a value of 2 for its attack bonus. That's pretty nice. Diddy's movement speed, both underwater and on land, is like above average. I think it's the fastest swimming speed and the second fastest running speed, if you do kind of the tricks. Guitar opens up all of Aztec. What else is there? Charge. And no, that's it. It's just Charge is the other one. And like Chimpy Charge is like whatever. He doesn't have the mind-blowing strengths that Chunky does, and that's gonna hold him back from the S tier. But I'd say Diddy Kong is pretty good. One thing I want to note about these two Kongs is I will dock them a little bit for their custom colors. I think a strength of Lanky is the fact that both the overalls and the fur get a different custom color, which can make for some like very fun variations. Chunky and I'm getting my internet checked out. This is the last straw. It betrayed me at the most crucial moment. Please let me know if you can see or hear me. You're back? Alright, thank you very much. Sorry about that. I think I'm gonna get an internet upgrade very soon. Thank you very much. We're just gonna keep on going. That was Diddy. Next, I'm gonna go Donkey Kong. S tier. Easy S tier. I lost sound and you froze for a minute. Thank you for letting me know. I definitely appreciate it. Here's the thing about Donkey Kong. Yes, Gorilla Grab, Strong Kong, and Blast aren't the best moves ever. They feel a little bit like throwaway moves. However, DK's movement is so unbelievably good that it makes up for any shortcomings in his moves. You can roll. There's a huge gap between the speed of a DK roll and a Diddy cartwheel and jump. When I'm in a randomizer, I gotta move. The cost of losing speed as I'm navigating around these maps is not going to be worth it ever. I always want Donkey Kong to roll around fast. In addition, Coconut is a very good gun. 2 damage, so utility's fine. But it opens up the entire hillside, the lighthouse area in Galleon, and that is not just to open up a couple more checks. The water level, which you can change behind there, influences the entirety of the level. There's access to a couple checks in the tree and a castle room and castle. I'm just going through all the places. And there's the check in Creme Isle, which is pretty convenient to get. I lost like 5 people because that internet dropped. I'm gonna talk to Xfinity very soon because this is quite silly. Coconut's so good. Not pineapple good, but it's very good. DK is not required by default in every seed, which is why I put him a little bit behind Chunky. But he does... that movement is just unbelievable. And it's not just his ability to roll and go fast. It's his jumping ability too. You can skip ponytail twirl checks with a DK kick. You can get over gaps efficiently. The DK kick jump is fast and effective and very strong. So DK's pretty big time. Now looking at a couple of his moves, ooh, actually I have another point about Chunky that's very important. Very important. Chunky's checks are incredibly dense. And this is something I'm going to talk about as I go into the other Kongs. If you go into Japes, you go over to the lowlands and you find the boulder. You throw the boulder, you get a check. You go down into the hole, and you find 2 more checks. There's 3 checks right next to each other. The other ones are in the hillside and in the hive area, which is fine. But we'll keep going here. You go into Angry Aztec, the next level. Go into the Chunky 5-door temple. You've got a Kasplat, a Dirt Patch, and a straight up check in there. Chunky's checks are incredibly dense, and that's important because any character that I have, when I'm going through a randomizer, if I'm not looking directly for something that's hinted or something I expect, I'm gonna be going for those high density checks. Chunky allows so much of that. Back to DK. I don't remember where I got to dense checks off of. But he's S tier for the reasons I talked about. Blast. Baboon Blast is not something that can be avoided. There's no way to skip those checks, so it's a good move to have when you have it. And Blast is a little bit slept on, even though the courses are kind of annoying because you can get coins and colored bananas in those courses. Strong Kong can typically be avoided, but it's kind of nice to have. I will say Donkey's Igloo blows because you have to, every time you get hit by that spinning ice thing, you lose an entire melon, which is ridiculous and unfounded in this game. Yeah. Donkey Kong's S tier. Next, we're gonna go with Crusha. For those who don't know, Crusha is a character who you can unlock in multiplayer, who has a lime grenade launcher and is a Kremlin. I'm putting him in A tier, and you might be like, alright, he's not a Kong, what's he doing here? I don't see him in the normal randomizers. So you can replace Crusha with any of the Kongs, and he will basically just be there and use their abilities and take their abilities. So, for example, say I wanted to have Crusha in my randomizer. I could put him in Tiny's slot. and then he would get the moves when they're available. Feather bow, mini monkey, ponytail twirl, etc. Watching this big crocodile dude do ponytail twirl by literally spinning in the air with like his arms out and being like muscular as heck, it's an absolute joy. He is hilarious. He does a little slide thing when he runs, which is pretty cool. It's a nice variety from all the mammals. In general, big Crusher fan. So I'm going to put him at A tier, which I'm pretty happy with. I don't have a lot of experience with him, so I can't really go more into it, and he doesn't have his own, like, factors. Aesthetically, I think he's pretty cool. He's got the camo. He's pretty committed to who he is. So I'm a big fan of that. Next. This pains me. We got our boy Lanky. No style, no grace. Ooh, and we're putting him in last place. Lanky's thing is that he's like long and like posable. And the fact that he can hit enemies from a long range, like a spear mechanic in another game, is not explored in the entire game until the final boss battle against K. Rool. That to me is pretty unbelievable. That there wasn't like a check, and I know that's not randomizer specific, but that there was no check where you have to like hit a button on the other side of a gate or something like that using his arms, and like you had to get Lanky first. Like that would have been great for Japes, because you'd walk up and you'd be like, man, what do I do about this? Like, is there a switch or something? I just learned about switches in the hillside. No, you got to get your Kong and come back. And it's just not touched at all until you get to his phase in K. Rool, which is super goofy. So, I mean, that's like a small mechanic, and kind of fun with his arms. Some pluses for Lanky. One, his custom colors are pretty good, because all of his orange fur gets replaced with whatever color you picked. Meaning you can end up with some very like fun and vibrant combinations between his fur and his overalls. And style's big when you're looking at these monkeys for like 2 hours at a time, like over and over again. Like you want a little bit of variety, and that definitely adds a nice touch. Thinking about Lanky's moves, tell me this. What Lanky checks do you actually enjoy doing? Anything with Orang Stand Sprint is pretty much a disaster. There's some nice utility to Orang Stand Sprint, because you get to go fast, and you get places faster. But you could pass most of it up using a DK roll anyways. What, do I want to do a beetle race in caves? No. Do I want to do rabbit race in forest? No. I just named two of the worst checks in the game. Those are both Lanky. Orang Stand's pure Orang Stand, well, you can skip all that shit with Tiny. You don't need that at all. You can kick slide up the hill. Alright, so now we've knocked out two of Lanky's moves is interesting. Alright, well now, Lanky's usually, if any Kong is not required for a seed, Lanky is the most likely to be not required. Baboon Balloon, you can skip a lot of that with a Diddy backflip and switch to Chunky or Lanky in the air. So then we go to his good moves. You've got Grape, and you've got Trombone. Trombone's pretty good. There's some stuff that you can only do with Trombone. It's an instrument, it's fine. Grape. Grape's where I really start to have a problem with Lanky. It's all of his utility stuff that really sets him behind the others. If I'm in that minigame where I'm stuck in the middle and the enemies are coming at me, there's nobody I want less than Lanky Kong. His cardboard toilet paper tube that shoots out grapes is so far away that it feels like weird, like where it comes out, and it's really hard to figure out how you're gonna hit these guys. In addition, it's Grape Sniper, and it doesn't have any additional sniping properties. There's no benefit. It does 1 damage, it has a weak feedback sound. Like, it's not satisfying when you hit an enemy with grape. It's like... I'm a little displeased with Lanky. Now he is silly, and he makes sounds like, hoopla! And that's a lot of fun. But he needs more than that. And like I said earlier, when you hit Lanky, my man flies like straight across the map at 90 miles an hour. I'm not that excited when I find Lanky. Now notice he's a B tier. Any Kong is good. There's no bad Kong. You open up tons of checks. Banana medals. Anything you could ask for. Having Kongs is good. But compared to the other Kongs, he struggles. That's just a fact. Finally, we've got Tiny Kong. Tiny, I'm going for A tier. So Tiny and Diddy are pretty similar. They've got good hops. They can get in the air, and they can make some jumps. So that's pretty cool. Ponytail Twirl is a great utility move. You can not only do ponytail twirl checks, but you can skip over platforming sections or have confidence in navigating platforming sections that you would not be able to without ponytail twirl. I'd say DK kick is secondary to ponytail twirl because of the horizontal distance. Mini Monkey is a really strong ability. It's used in so many places for some pretty dense checks. Treasure chest. The Aztec urn area in the Llama Temple. A lot of good density, and there's just no way to get around the requirement for it. And it seems to be required a lot. Also required for K. Rool. Feather, not an incredible gun, but high velocity of feather releases. I'd say a more satisfying like hitbacks or feedback sound when you hit something with feather. And in that gun minigame I've been talking about, one really nice thing about Tiny and Featherbow is that instead of just killing an enemy instantly, it takes a couple hits to kill them, which sounds odd, but you can kind of stall the enemies and like stagger them and force their spawning in a way that you want to by the fact that you can hit them and knock them back a couple of times before they actually die. That gives you greater control over how much you're getting swarmed in that minigame, which is very important. And another big thing is that Feather, when she does that, Featherbow is like in the middle of her body. So it's very clear in what direction you're shooting and where you're going to hit an enemy from. That's big time. Tiny is required for all seeds because of Monkey Port, a requirement to get in Helm. Tiny's overalls and hair and hat change as a part of custom coloring. That bottom layer of her cap that you can see right here is actually her hair. So it's fun to see that variety in terms of color and just aesthetics. Her dash is not incredible. Her hit back is not incredible, which is why she's at the bottom of A tier. But she's just required for so many things that I gotta have her in A. Yeah, that's the Kong's tier list. Now we're gonna get into some more goofy stuff. Hope you guys are having a good time. Thank you so much for joining. Feel free to argue back in the chat. Why am I blurry? Alright, just pull back. There we go. That's much better. Alright, next. Alright, this is gonna take a while. I'm gonna try and... I'm gonna keep this a little bit tighter because there's so many of them. Man, we still got some tier lists to go. My voice is gonna be shot tomorrow. First, and I will say from this point on, I have not done any amount of rehearsing or really thinking about it other than the bosses. So it's gonna be a little bit more off the cuff and we're gonna figure it out. I need to start off with an S tier so that I have some kind of basis. I'm gonna find me an S tier and a D tier, just to have a basis. I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna pull guitar into S tier. Guitar unlocks so much stuff. If I find guitar, I'm always happy. 2 cabins in caves, igloo, caves lobby, the back of Aztec, helm, all kinds of stuff. Guitar is just needed for so many things. And if you don't have it, you're definitely in a loss. There's 2 places in Galleon. It might be the best instrument in the game. You summon the mech fish with it. The density is big time. It's needed for helm. So some of the factors here with the moves are going to be like, are they needed for helm? Am I excited to see them? Can I bypass them by doing other things? You're not really going to bypass a guitar check in any way. You can't get into the back of Aztec. You can't get into the igloo, anything like that. Which is naturally going to make our guns and our instruments stronger, but... you know. Hunky Chunky feels like a pretty solid... Oh man, this is tough. I'm gonna start with C tier. No. I'm gonna put a B tier. So it's required for K Rool. So, and I feel like it's always chunky K Rool. Like, tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like it's always chunky K Rool. I don't know why. Hunky Chunky by itself, there is not a ton of checks, but all of them are kind of fun. You have this big gorilla dude. You get to run really fast. Who doesn't love Pound the X? You get to do Toy Monster. Hunky Chunky is a lot of fun, but when I find it in a randomizer, I care about what checks I can do. I'd say Hunky Chunky checks can't be bypassed by other moves, so you're kind of happy to see it. It's chunky, so you're happy to see it. It's helm required a lot of the time, so you're happy to see it. But it doesn't have a ton of extra utility because you have to find a barrel, and that holds back a lot of these barrel moves in general. So I put it solidly in B tier. Apparently we're going through all the chunky moves first. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab Pineapple here. I'm putting Pineapple in A tier. It's a gun. It does 3 damage. It has a big hitbox, but it is not required for Helm or K Rool. It opens the bean area, but it doesn't like unlock a whole lot. But I'm always happy to see it just for the sake of the utility. It's really nice to have Pineapple, and outside of check utility is very important for all the moves. When I see Simian Spring or something, I'm upset because I can only use it on that pad. All of the pad moves. I'm disappointed because it doesn't actually accelerate my game at all, other than letting me do some more checks. When I get Pineapple's S tier. I take it back. When I get Pineapple, I can go into the Vulture Room in Tiny Temple, and I can knock that bitch out in 2 hits. There's Strength. I can go into the gun minigame, and I can kill people in 1 hit. I can go up to Kasplats and destroy them in just a couple of Pineapples. It's so fast. Yeah, Pineapple's great. I actually gotta give it S tier. It's got both check and in-game utility. That's pretty good. Alright. That triangle. I'm gonna try to keep moving on these. Because I know the weekly... I don't know if anybody knows exactly when the weekly is, but it's gotta be like... It might be in an hour? Like 8 o'clock Eastern? I'm not sure. But I don't want to hold back if the DK64 speedrunning stream is restreaming that, because you gotta support the community, you know? We're gonna go triangle here. Should start in an hour. Maybe not a restream. Got it. I would still love to see everybody go out and support the different streamers and runners in the community. So I'm gonna try to wrap this up before then, and I think we should. I'm I'm a little caught on triangle. So it's required for... You know what? I think I'm rating too high. I'm put triangle in B tier. Triangle is not required for a lot of things. There's no big door to an area or something like that that's locked by triangle. It's required for... Ooh. Yeah. It's required for Helm. You've got, like, the Claptrap Room. You've got... Caves, Igloo, and Cabins. And you've got the Toy Monster. But... Triangle doesn't have a lot else going on for it. It's good because it's an instrument. Chunky also doesn't need that much help killing things. You could just use Pineapple. So when you are Chunky, Triangle doesn't afford you that much of a benefit. It feels like the other instruments afford you more benefit. Saxophone lets you do the bean. It lets you do the anthill, etc. In combination with Mini Monkey. Trombone is required for both Helm and for K. Rool. Bongos, it feels like it's used in a lot of places. I'd say Triangle might be the weakest of the instruments. But it's balanced out by being on a great Kong. Primate Punch. This is a toughie. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Primate Punch isn't that great for attacking enemies, for example. However, there are so many punch checks that are fast. And when I'm playing the randomizer, I want to do checks that are very fast so that I can get a GB or a junk item and move on with my day. I can go into the Galleon Caverns and I can just punch the treasure chest and then just punch the gate in front of the arena and do them and get out of there super quick. I can go into Factory and punch the gate to the dark room, get in there, get 2 dense checks very quickly. Everything that punch locks, which there's a lot of stuff that punch locks, is pretty efficient to complete the check. It's got utility out of the just checks because you can do damage with it. And it's also required for a K. Rool, which makes it A tier for me. Gorillagon's B tier. There are not many Gorillagon checks in the game. There's like the Igloo. No. Not the Igloo. There's the cabin. There's the castle, like shed, but you can also have triangle for that. Now it does let you get in. It's required every seed. I gotta give it A tier. Here's the thing. It's required every seed. You can't not have gone. It doesn't matter what Kongs. It doesn't. You need it to get the vines to appear in Helm, lobby to get into Helm. Yeah, that makes it A tier. Not a lot of utility, but also used in a K. Rool fight. So it's K. Rool fight, it's Helm lobby, all of those things. That puts it in solidly in A tier. I do gotta pick up the pace. There's a lot of stuff here. Holy cow. Rocket Barrel, A tier. S tier. Rocket Barrel is S tier. You need it for both Helm and K. Rool. Rocket Barrel can help you traverse an entire map extremely quickly. Castle. How would you like to go anywhere you want before having to climb the entire way up? Bang, Rocket Barrel. How would you like to go to the top of the mushroom without even having to climb it? Bang, Rocket Barrel. How would you like to go from the cabins to the igloo area in caves without having to hit the teleporters? Bam, Rocket Barrel. It's fast. You can't... The checks that require Rocket Barrel cannot be bypassed. It's a good move. It's a very good move. Peanuts. A tier. 2 damage. Very good for that gun minigame because you can hit on both sides of an enemy. Unlocks basically a bunch of japes needed for K. Rool. Pretty cool. They're pop guns. Made it into Smash. Also pretty cool. A tier. I don't have too much to say about that. Some of this is going to become repeated because the guns, the instruments, they're kind of like repeated tropes. Chimpy Charge. Oh, I'm rethinking this again. So Hunky Chunky, anything that's needed for K. Rool or Helm can't be lower than a B tier. This is where we start getting into the trash. Chimpy Charge is needed for like a slim handful of things in the game. A handful of things in Aztec and Aztec Lobby, Underground and Castle, R&D Diddy Room, which you like never do. It's just not much. It doesn't have utility outside. There's that one check you can skip in the Tiny Temple by doing the triangle door and like Chimpy charging in to skip the minigame, but that's like hard to do. Chimpy Charge does not have a lot going on for it. No utility, not required for a lot of stuff. It can't really be bypassed that much, unlike our next one, but it's not great. Next, Simian Spring. I'm gonna say this right now, this is the worst move in the game. Simian Spring is hot garbage. You can bypass almost every single Simian Spring check. I'm pretty much never happy when I find this move. I could just backflip. I need Diddy in the first place, so I've already got a high jump. And chances are I've also got Lanky or Chunky. So I'm just going to backflip and tag anywhere to switch to a Kong that can make the jump. In summary, Simian Spring is by far the worst move in the game, and I'm not ever happy to see it. I'd rather find an ammo upgrade. I would not rather find an instrument upgrade, but that's about it. Strong Kong. I'm gonna put Strong Kong as C tier. Strong Kong, putting Strong Kong at D tier. Strong Kong is not required for K. Rool. It's not required for Helm. In most places, it can be bypassed with enough melons. Or some kind of ponytail twirl trick. In fact, I can't think of a place where you absolutely need Strong Kong. Not the library, not the quicksand tunnel, not Cave's lobby, because you can boulder and PTT. You can PTT in the igloo. I think we found the two worst moves in the game right here. Strong Kong and Simian Spring, easy. Alright. Coconut time. I'm putting Coconut Nest here. So, we've talked about this a little bit, so I won't dwell on it. But Coconut just locks a lot of important stuff. It's not required for Helm. It's not required for K. Rool. However, it locks an entire area in Gloomy Galleon, the lighthouse, and that lighthouse influences the rest of the level through the water level. It's important. It locks so many of the checks in the hillside. There's that check in Creme Isle. It's got 2 damage associated with it. It's just a solid weapon, and I'm always happy to see it. And I'll generally, like, if I'm doing, like, item hinting, and I see that, like, Coconut Gun is on a boss, I will generally go for that coconut, even if I don't think I need it, depending on the time of the seed. Bongos. I think Bongos is the second weakest instrument. I'm gonna put it in B tier. There are a couple dense checks associated with it. The DK cabin exclusively has 2 things inside of it, and one of them is peekable, which is pretty nice. You've got Factory Lobby. Wait, no, it's Helm. Yeah, you do need bongos for helm, duh. Morning, not gonna be in long, but wanted to stop by before I continued doing bad at Master Quest. Well, Pyroki, thank you very much for stopping in, and good luck on your Master Quest adventure. Spirit Temple, right? You're at the Spirit Temple? Bongo's an instrument, so it's not going lower than B tier. In fact, I'd probably put it higher than Triangle. It feels like it has better utility than that. Very cool. Spirit Temple. No idea. Yeah, it sounds complicated. But bongos, there's not a ton locked behind bongos. You got 3 cabins. That's a highlight in Igloo. So if you got bongos, you're great in caves. Not that I like being in caves anyways. But thinking about the rest of the entire game, you got Factory Lobby. Not a lot more. That's why I'm putting bongos at B tier. Gorilla Grab. This is a toughie. This is right on the border between C and D. I think I'm gonna put it in D tier. But at the top of D tier. Gorilla Grab. If you have a Gorilla Grab check, you need Gorilla Grab for it. Donkey Minecart. And we'll excuse the Factory Lobby check. But the arena in Factory, the mills behind the spinner check, all of it requires you to have grab, so there's no getting around it. That makes it top of D tier, but it's very limited. It has no utility in the slightest. A lot of times, those checks are so locked that you don't need them anyways. And depending on what it is, you might not want to have to do the thing behind it. If you go for the arena and Factory, you still have to sit through, like, the opening, like, kind of cutscene-y bit and, like, wait and then, like, leave if it's not a good check. Which means I'm not looking forward to anything I have to do with Gorilla Grab, except, like, maybe inside the mills. But I don't want to be in forest, I don't want it to be daytime, and I certainly don't want to go inside the mills. So I'm making that D tier. Blast. Baboon Blast. That's a pretty solid C tier. A lot of the same reasoning for Gorilla Grab, but there's a very big difference. Baboon Blast has utility in the fact that you can get bananas, colored bananas, and coins with your Baboon Blast. The courses can be pretty difficult, and I think I like the fact that it's a little bit difficult. It kind of separates some of the beginners from the experts and provides more of a skill ceiling, because you can really make your blast course checks efficient. And there's one, I believe, in every single level, so it is spread out pretty well throughout the levels. But am I happy when I see it? Probably not, because then I have to do a blast course, which feels like a pain in the ass. Which makes me put it solidly in C tier. Alongside homing. There are very few homing checks in the game, but I don't mind having it. Homing ammo is utility. It makes a lot of the shooting checks easier. I'm getting very distracted by this One Wing Kong music. It's such a jam, though. I'm so excited for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Homing ammo has a lot of utility in those shooting games, like Donkey Cabin, in Tiny Trash Can, in whatever you need to kill, particularly in combination with a gun like Chunky's Pineapple. You can kill things very fast and not have to be precise. Adds a little bit of convenience to your game. Even if it doesn't have a lot of checks, I'd say the utility is enough to bump it up to C tier. Ooh. Rank Stand Sprint, I'm putting in C tier. So Rank Stand Sprint. No, I'm putting in D tier. there's some stuff you can only do with a rank stand sprint. That's for sure. Rabbit race, beetle race. I think that's it. But I never want to see that. I never want to do those races. I would rather just not do them. There, it sounds like the list. It's not fun to do those races. Without the lag, the rabbit race is a disaster, and the beetle race is very long. And if you think about some of the other rank stand sprint checks, you can bypass them all with the donkey roll, and if you're after the first like 3 levels, you're pretty likely to have most of the Kongs and have DK. If not, you can probably come back and get it. Meaning, there's very few things that you can actually get on one of those checks. And then, think a little bit further. The rabbit race and the beetle race are behind other things as well. They're behind grape to get into the owl tree area. They're behind baboon balloon to get into the beetle race. So not only are they pretty unlikely, but anything I have to do with them is a nightmare. Which means, if I see it, I'm not happy. Which is why I'm putting a rank stand sprint solidly in D tier. Next we've got grape. I've talked about this a little bit. But grape does not provide a very good feedback sound when I hit an enemy. It gives me a very flaccid, like, sound. As opposed to the nice, like, boom, from like a pineapple. So even just using it, it doesn't bring me a lot of joy. He shoots it out of a cardboard tube. In beginner, it only has use if it locks DK. Yeah, honestly. It's almost entirely useless in beginner. I don't think I used it the entire time. And so grape even locks some of the rank stand sprint checks. But like grape is the last gun I would want to use in the gun minigame, surrounded by enemies, because where it gets shot is so far off from where the Kong's actually at that it's a little bit disorienting. Has a damage of 1. Grape Sniper has no sniper properties to it, unless you actually have the sniper ability, so it doesn't even accomplish what it sets out to do. It's not required for a K rule or a helm. However, it does lock owl tree. I'm gonna put it like the bottom of B tier. I cannot morally put a gun lower than B tier, because a gun itself lets you do things like change the time of day, lets you shoot enemies in the air. You can't have a gun lower than B tier. But if it were that low, it would be great. Trombone. Trombone is A tier. This is Lanky's best move by far. And it's primarily because it's used for both K Rool and Helm. So there are many, many times in the randomizer that you need Trombone. And I find it can often be the clinch point for my entire seed. You use it in a lot of places across the game. 5-door ship. There's a cabin, there's an igloo, there's the Japes lobby, there's inside of the Llama Temple. Maybe not as much utility as I was thinking, which is probably why it's at the bottom of A tier. But just the fact that it's used for both Helm and K Rool means the likelihood of it popping up is so high. It's also an instrument, so it provides you with a melon at a very basic level. And the utility of being able to hit enemies in an extremely long reach beyond your current environment. So you can hit enemies behind a glass wall or something with this. And that's good on its own. So I'm going to give it A tier. Next is just a rank stand. Okay. Here's the thing. You don't need a rank stand for anything in this entire game. You can tiny kick slide everything else. You might need it if Tiny is behind in a rank stand check. Maybe, because you could probably use DK for the same thing and just kick. Maybe get on top of it, something like that, like Painting Hill Dirt. But is it going to be faster for me to tiny kick slide up something that's very steep, or a rank stand walk up it? It's going to be faster to a rank stand, so I'd be happy to go with that. Which means a rank stand's utility outweighs its check value, which is kind of nice. Then you can cartwheel a fair bit up a hill as well, as depending on how far you need to go. That's right, and there are a lot of Kongs that can do like this weird thing where you like kind of get up the hill and then do like an attack and then like jump and like cancel. I've never done that before, but it sounds like a lot of Kongs can get up a lot of hills without it. Regardless, it's faster to a rank stand up them, and there are a fair amount of hills in the game. So when I see a rank stand, I'm actually happier to see it than a lot of the other moves, because it's just convenient. I don't have to worry about things. Which is... I'm still going to put it at the bottom of D tier, because it's totally unrequired for just about anything. But it's neat. Baboon Balloon. What do we got here? Give me a second to think. So Balloon, usually it can be bypassed by a lot of things. There's a lot of places you can like biddy into Chunky to bypass the Baboon Balloon check. But there are some places, and there's some places you can PTT around it. But there are some places you're not getting away from it, and there are some places that Baboon Balloon provides some extra utility to get where you need to go. A big example is caves. If you use the balloon pad on top of the castle, you can get to the lone Kasplat on the lanky platform. It's nice to have a little extra utility there. The problem is, Baboon Balloon has horrendous controls. I feel like I have no control over what Lanky's doing. Like, he has so much forward momentum while I'm doing stuff. I kind of hate it. Like, I don't like being in Baboon Balloon state. However, I can't put it in D tier, because in NSAC, you can use Baboon Balloon to get up onto the top, and it is hilarious to watch Lanky fly up at the speed of a rocket to the top of Creme Isle. And that's why I'm going for C tier. Next we've got slams. This is relatively boring. I am going to give Slam a B tier, because it gotta go for funny options. You got that right, Pyrogi. I'm gonna give it a B tier because it's required for Chunky K. Rool, and then I'm giving super duper ass Slam a C because it is rarely used, but when it's required, it's like really required. Slams lock so much stuff. I gotta give it A. I'm never not happy to find a slam because it's useful for so much stuff. But I think at the end of the tiers is fine. It's rare that you need super duper, but when you need it, you really need it. There's so much stuff behind switches in this game that it is pretty useful. Next we got Sniper. I gotta give Sniper bottom of C tier. Most of what Sniper can do, homing can do better. There's very few checks you need it for. Nobody zooms. You don't know if there's a level that doesn't have a switch in it unless you can't home. Yeah, there's so many switches, so they're pretty valuable. I don't think... It feels like most of the stuff you could do with Sniper, you could do with homing, and homing also provides a little bit of homing to make it easier to hit things. Making it just inferior to homing. So I'm gonna put it at the bottom of D tier. Next we've got Mini Monkey, which is pretty easy A tier. There's a lot of... I feel like anytime I have Mini Monkey... Nope. Mini Monkey's S tier. You need Mini Monkey for Helm. K Rool. For K Rool. And all of the Mini Monkey checks, you're not bypassing with anything else. And they are all over the place. And they're dense. The best check in the game, Treasure Chest, is locked behind Mini Monkey. In Llama Temple, you've got a Kasplat and you've got a check right next to each other. Mini Monkey. Tiny Temple, Mini Monkey. Factory Lobby. Or not Factory Lobby. Gloomy Galleon Lobby. There's another check. There's the submarine in Galleon. The, like, entirety of the Hive area. Frickin', there's the entrance to the second car race in Castle. There's the trash can. Mini Monkey, Ant Hill. Mini Monkey is used all over the frickin' place. And you get some good stuff from it. Mini Monkey is fantastic. I'm never unhappy to see it. Unless I have to get the Banana Fairy. But that is a different thing. Feather Bow. I'm gonna put Feather in A tier. Feather locks the BFI island check, which I almost always want to get because it's very convenient. It's a very fast gun. It feels like it comes out fast and it's very precise. I like it in the gun minigame because it comes out from Tiny's chest in the very center of her, so I understand at what angle it's coming out at. It locks the bean area, which is very good to have access to because there's a shop, there's the bean, there's the hunky chunky. But I wouldn't put it any higher because it doesn't unlock very much more than that. However, Saxophone I gotta rank a little bit higher. It does a lot of the same things. It's needed for Helm instead of K Rool. It's needed for a lot of the same checks as Mini Monkey. It opens up Ant Hill. It opens up the bean. A couple other things. But it's less checks. It's just kind of an instrument like every other instrument. Cabins, you know, R&D. Actually, it doesn't even have an R&D because you just use Mini Monkey for that. Yeah, so it's just kind of an instrument for Tiny, but it's still Saxophone. It's still an instrument, so it's still good to some degree. It's like right next to Trombone. PTT might be the most interesting thing on this list. I gotta give it A. So PTT, not required for Helm, not required for K Rool. A lot of the checks can be bypassed with DK. But, again, how happy am I to see it in a randomizer? Well, I'm typically very happy to see it in a randomizer, because it provides me utility unlike almost any other move in this entire thing. Maybe rivaled by Pineapple. I can start skipping over, like, horizontal gaps. I can move faster across levels. In the same way that I rank DK S tier because of movement, I gotta give PTT a pretty high ranking just because of how easy it is to navigate across the level. And there are certain checks that can't be navigated without PTT or are extremely difficult. I do not want to be trying to do the hands in the Tiny Crypt without PTT. It is a nightmare if I'm donkey kicking. Finally, we got Monkey Port. I'm gonna give it, like, highest of B tier. Like, there aren't a lot of Monkey Port checks in the game. They're very slim. But again, you need Monkey Port every single seed because you gotta get to the top of Helm. So I'm, like, happy to see it. But it's got even... Man, I gotta adjust this a little bit. Yawn and Monkey Port are kind of the same thing. It's like, they're a requirement, so I, like, need them, but I don't want them because of their utility, unless I want to pound the X or something like that. So that's where I'll put them. Yeah, that's that for now. Yeah, that's the move tier list. Next, I think we got bosses, and then we're at 134. I don't know if I'm going to do the enemies tier list. It might be very fast. But let's go ahead and do the bosses tier list, because we're coming up on 8 o'clock, and I want everybody to. I don't want to hold anybody back from watching actual racers do the race today. So we're gonna do the bosses here. Please ignore all the banjo ones. I just grabbed a very convenient tier list, and the banjo ones just happen to be on there. I have not played Banjo-Kazooie or Banjo-Tooie. We're gonna start out with King Cutout here, and I'm gonna go with a solid A tier. I think the idea of the final boss of the final normal level being this cardboard cutout of the final boss that my playlist done? What are we doing here? I gotta restart. We listened to 48 songs. Holy crap, that was fast. Okay, that's better. I think the idea of the final boss of the final level being just a cutout of the final boss that all the minions are holding up, it's hilarious in concept. One thing that's important to me in the bosses is how much control do you have over speeding up the fight, making it go faster. And there's a lot you can learn about King Cutout to make it go faster. When he gets to the ha 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 phase where he starts hopping around, he always goes in a certain direction, and then he'll start popping up after the lasers in kind of the same order. So you can always position yourself in the right place to be able to take advantage of that and take him out as soon as possible. So better players will learn to see the lasers, move to the next spot, capitalize, and kill him as fast as possible. While new players will spend some time running around and trying to find the right spot, which means there's a high skill ceiling, and a unique concept too. Using the cannons to kill the boss, using all 5 Kongs even before you found them inside of the actual game, I think makes this very dynamic and fun. Also fits into the idea of the castle because you're in the top of the castle at like the very crest of it, and you can see the edges, and you're firing over the top and taking down the boss. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm gonna give it A tier. Also props to being... It's a little bit slow, so I wouldn't put it in S tier, but I like the idea of it a lot. I risk too much when I do that stuff. Yeah, but I feel like that's the mark though. Like you start King Cutout and you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then you kind of figure out the pattern and you start going for risky stuff. And then eventually you get to that top level and you're like, all right, bang, bang, bang. All right, I hit the first barrel he was available in every time. In the same vein, I'm going to put Puff Toss at S tier. I think it did take a few days to figure out that fight as a kid. Yeah, I mean, it's complicated and like it's a little bit tricky. Like King Cutout sets out in what it intends to be, which is a little bit of a tricky fight where you have to use your reaction speed and your observational skills to find the right spot that he's in because he has the duplicates, and like he moves around the barrels pretty quickly. So your reaction speed has to be on time too. So you're very rewarded for being a good player, I think. Which is a good mark. I'm gonna put Puff Toss at A tier. I like Puff Toss a lot, but he's not S tier. I think Puff Toss is also very similar. It's nice to have another boss where you don't have requirements. It's not locked behind anything. But there's a lot of ways to optimize this. And this is something I just worked through, personally. But when you first go through Puff Toss, and like, unless you really look into it, like, you're just kind of circling and like hoping you find the right space and the right star to continue to take down the boss. But as you go in, you start to learn some little tricks, especially if you look at the actual like setup of the stars. On the last phase of Puff Toss, two sets of the stars pop up in the same place consecutively. And as a new player, that leads you to take an entire lap around the boss to try and find the thing, which makes the timer go down fast and waste a lot of time. But if you're a very invested player, you can be rewarded for your diligence by just going to the same spot and waiting after you hit the star and memorizing the pattern. And I think that's a nice way to separate a good player from a new player. Again, in a randomizer, I feel like I did that up until I started with the randomizer. Yeah, it's just like you circle and circle and hope you find it. And in a randomizer, I think what's beautiful about DK64 Randomizer is the fact that you see a lot of the best players winning over and over again. Despite the fact that you can find something in random places, like there is some equalizing factor, your wisdom and your skill largely dictates how you do in the game. And all of those micro optimizations, all of it adds up, and you can be a great player even with a high factor of luck involved. And I think that makes a very satisfying randomizer. It makes DK a lot of fun, I think. Next is the Armadillo rematch. I might give this a C tier. It's Armadillo, but it takes longer, and you gotta get hit by a giant missile. Anything in which I gotta sit through a bunch of cutscenes, in which I gotta get hit by something to make it go faster. Like, there's a little bit of a factor in which you can speed it up by getting hit by his attacks, but that doesn't feel satisfying. It doesn't make me feel like I'm a much better player because I got hit by his roly-poly-oly attack, you know? I'm not happy when I see it. I know I can find barrels by whatever point this pops up, but I probably found Armadillo 1 by that point anyways. I don't think the cave setting adds much to the fight at all. It's not thematic. It feels random. Not a big fan. K-Rool. I'm gonna go A tier. K-Rool is a fun showcase of all the Kong's like abilities and variety. I think it's comical. Like the fact that he's like super serious this whole game. He sits in this throne, and then he just shows up with boxing gloves and starts throwing it like a fucking maniac at Diddy Kong. This man is cracked when he's fighting Diddy Kong. I've never seen a man on such a mission. He's just like... And you don't have time to breathe. I think it's a very silly fight. I think it's fun. I think DK64 conceptually, it's a fun celebration of all the abilities you got during the game. I think the cutscenes are silly and the ending's silly. I think it's fun. Good A tier. Dogadon 2, easy D tier. To sum my feelings up on this, it feels like when I'm playing Dogadon 2, I'm spending the whole time looking at cutscenes going, go, go, go. Because he's so dramatic. He just sits there in the cutscenes and he's like spinning around and he's like, Rawr. And I just want him to go. It's another just like kind of generic barrel throwing one. It's like kind of neat to be hunky chunky and like punch them, but I don't think it adds that much. It feels like another step other than the first time you see it. It's one of the few bosses with multiple requirements, maybe the only one. Impossible to do that fight without damage. Yeah, and you get hit by the giant wave, and I don't think you can avoid that. So ultimately, like, do I ever want to see Dogadon 2? No. Armadillo 1. Very similar to Armadillo. Little nostalgic because it's the Japes boss and it's like the first boss you see. You don't have to get hit by the giant missile, so that's pretty cool. But it's largely the same thing. It's like another barrels boss, and it's like, that's fine, I guess. I just don't really care about it too much. I think Armadillo is like kind of cool looking, and he goes, and that's fine. You need barrels for it, so you know you can find barrels before it, but that's really it. Mad Jack's S tier. Going through the stream again, I think the number one thing that really best boss, yeah. One, as a kid, Mad Jack is difficult and terrifying. Like conceptually, this thing is like on your ass, and I think it's great. It's a true exploration of PTT, Ponytail Twirl, to its like finest stretch. I think it's the only boss where the required move can be bypassed with skill. You can kick slide and jump over the platforms with incredible ability and dexterity and awareness of how the camera is going to spin on you to bypass the Ponytail Twirl requirement, and that makes you awesome. So I think the skill ceiling on Mad Jack in that case is beyond like anything. A little bit annoying when you have to, like, if the switch like just ends up on the other half of the platform or something like that. That can be a real pain. In addition, Mad Jack is voiced by Donald Duck's actual voice actor. So if it sounds like Donald Duck, that's because it's legitimate. That is Donald Duck. Everybody wants to see Mad Jack during a stream. And that's why I'm putting Mad Jack at S tier. Big fan. Everybody's excited. It's a fun skill challenge. It separates the good from the newer people. I think it's very cool. I'm gonna put Dogadon 1 in B tier. Same thing. It feels very similar to Armadillo. Pretty much the same boss fight to me, in all reality. There's not a lot of difference here. You throw barrels, you dodge some stuff. What you don't have to deal with is like just the huge amount of cutscenes in that one like unavoidable attack from Dogadon 2. That's why I got Dogadon at B tier. We got an enemies tier list, but I really gotta go to the bathroom, and like my voice is getting kind of tired. Who's on Twitch to like raid? I think I might. I'm gonna raid Kuiper, I think. Yeah. Anyways, that's the DK64 randomizer tier list on it, homies. Thank you so much for joining. There's a link to the Discord in the top if you want. I had a great time doing the stream. I'm gonna cut it up for a YouTube video, and that'll be a lot of fun. I like describing stuff, so that was good, and I'm glad so many people joined for it. That brought me a lot of joy. So it's a good day for me, and I appreciate you all coming on. We'll get a new goal set up soon for a fun or a different stream. In the meantime, I'd like to encourage you to the weekly for DK64 randomizer is going to be popping up in about 10 minutes now. 13 minutes. So go ahead and check out some of those runners. We got an awesome community out here for the DK64. I think we're gonna raid Kuiper. When we go into the stream, don't be afraid to drop. I think we're gonna say the haunted homies are here, so don't be afraid to drop that in there. We're gonna make a big splash. And thank you all so much for joining. I think I'm gonna go bathe my dog, because she's stinky, and we're going to see my parents this weekend. So I'm gonna go bathe my dog with my wife. I'll see you guys Sunday for the Alpha Mario. Thank you so much for following. I really appreciate it. You've been in the Scrubs Central races. Congratulations. You've done congratulations on doing all those races. It's been awesome to see you involved like that. You too, Pyroki. Thanks for a nice weekend. See you all Sunday at I don't know what time. I'll post in the Discord. We're gonna be doing the qualifier for the Blitz tournament, which is like regular seeds and stuff. /raid. Don't care. Alright, on it, homies. Thank you so much. I'm your spooky host, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'd be happy to have you.
bogey.